Alright, let's talk about this. Okay. I recently ran into a friend of mine who's a film journo, and he was talking about how there's a lot of people who, when Arrow Video or Criterion, actually usually it's Arrow Video, they're the ones I see on the forums on like Facebook and whatever. They've got their announcements. Here's this movie, here's that movie, here's the Blu-ray release, here's the 4K release, here's this and that. And the amount of times you'll get maybe even just a re-release of a film from a different brand that's exactly the same scan as previously, maybe absolutely nothing new, just a reprint from a different brand, maybe an additional featurette or two, maybe a new scan, but it's just a 4K scan on Blu-ray. And there always is that 1 or 2 or 6 or 12 or 18 or 24 or some large assortment of comments of people saying, why isn't it a 4K? Why is there no 4K UHD disc of this film? I love this film. Why isn't there a 4K? Why can't you cater more to me and what I love? You know? And it gets to this point where it's like, a lot of the times I will see some of these comments and I'll be like, yeah, I can kind of understand if it's like a film that's like just a reprint of an old master. You know, there's no actual remastered element to it. There's nothing really new. It's just, oh, this brand has picked it up to do a Blu-ray release, and no one has actually done anything to add a 4K UHD to it, you know? Say if someone like Imprint were to, you know, pick up a film that's a cult classic that people are like, yes, this needs a Blu-ray release, or this needs a new Blu-ray with a 4K restoration, or even a UHD, and it gets none of that. I'm trying to provide different examples of why people would, what you get for a Blu-ray release, and then to have people complain. But I think at the same time, it doesn't really matter. Sometimes it is just simply oh yeah, they've got this, maybe Arrow has a new Blu-ray coming out of a film, and it's just a 4K scan on a Blu-ray, no actual 4K UHD, and lo and behold, people are going to complain. But then there's like the strange reverse twist. I've seen this recently. I can't remember what brand it was. It might have been like Indicator or 88 Films or someone. One of these boutique brands, of course, is releasing some like older noir films, and they had announced that they were doing a 4K UHD. And then they announced recently, and I say recently, this is the middle of Feb, that they're not going to do the UHD. Instead, they're just going to do a standard 4K remaster on a Blu-ray, because people aren't pre-ordering enough. Now, this is two different topics realistically, but it's also still the equation of, it kind of is under the same umbrella of people are asking for a 4K UHD of a film, but then the films that are getting 4K UHDs, people aren't pre-ordering, and so because people aren't pre-ordering it, the companies aren't actually going to continue their, you know, promise of producing that, which is strange. Like, there are certain films that I don't think need a 4K UHD. There's a large slew of films. Like, I recently watched Basket Case, and I'm like, great, this was a fun film. I want to get the Blu-ray. And of course, Arrow Video is like, hey, we've got this 4K UHD coming out, which I know that, was it MoMA did a 4K restoration of like the original 16mm print, and it's like, that's cool and all, and Arrow had done a previous release of that pre-pandemic, and it's like, that's nice. But Second Sight has the whole trilogy, and it already had the first one remastered from partially in the positive of the 35mm, but also the 16mm, because the director was like, yeah, they look basically identical, so put it together for the missing elements. And then you get the extra, you know, documentary and all the extra special features talking about all three films and all that jazz. And it's like, I opted to go for that option, despite it being out of print. I was able to get it for $100 odd on the eBays. And I'm like, after having watched the film, I'm like, I don't think I, you know, need this on 4K UHD. Even the people on like the forums, like the bluray.com forum, whatever, because occasionally I like to get different perspectives and find different places, either Reddit, the bluray.com forums, AV forums, whatever it is. And I like to see what people are saying about a thing. Usually there's the initial, oh, these are the rumors, then this is the announcement, then, I don't like the packaging, I don't like the artwork, is the 4K going to be good, this, that, and all the in-betweens. You've got to be as nitpicky as thoroughly as you can, because everyone has different preferences and what they want. And people were saying with Basket Case, when it was announced that it was a 4K UHD, everyone's like, I'm not buying that. I've already got the old Blu-ray, and even if, at worst, it's like, what's the point? The old Blu-ray looks great. I don't need to get a 4K UHD, especially for this kind of a film, which is so low budget that it's like, does this need a 4K UHD? You're not getting anything extra with it. So why are they putting in the time and effort to put a 4K UHD of Basket Case when they could instead be like, oh, we've got the prints for the second and third film, we're doing a trilogy set, we're going to do a 4K UHD of the first film, so there's at least a bit of a bonus, like an extra kick to it, and then here's the extra 2 films. Or do what they did with Reanimator, where they've already released Reanimator, we'll just do... Actually, no, I just realized they didn't actually do Beyond... Did they do Beyond Reanimator? Maybe they had done it initially. I'm thinking of, like, Umbrella, and how they had their release of Reanimator, but their second release was Reanimator and was Bride of Reanimator and Beyond Reanimator in one set on 2 different discs. So, like, not completely the same, is it? But it definitely is that kind of thing of like, well, I could have, like, you know, it comes out in April to get Basket Case on 4K. I'm like, I could wait, but because there's nothing really that seems extra to it, there were some new featurettes talking specifically about that film, because the documentary that's on the second side release is talking about the trilogy. You can't have that on talking about one film, and then you got to get the rights for it and all this bullshit. Yeah, so this comes to a question of what films kind of deserve to be on 4K, what films do we really need on 4K, what films do we really want on 4K, because of course it's now becoming a sometimes supply and demand. If some people aren't buying, especially pre-ordering, which is a really not a great outlook when companies are like, hey, sorry, people aren't pre-ordering this film on 4K UHD, so we're not going to put in the money to produce a 4K UHD disc. Which, from a money point of view, from the company, is fair. If you aren't guaranteed people are going to buy a UHD disc, don't put in the money to make a UHD disc. You know, like, for some brands at the time when they had initially made some films, like produced them on Blu-ray, say, like, again, with Basket Case on 4K, that was a new scan that they actually didn't make. They were able to get the license for it and produce it on their own Blu-ray, which was like, yes, now we have the best-looking version of the film, including some featurettes just talking about the film, and commentaries talking about the one film, not the sequel, it's just the one. And of course, all these years later, now they're doing 4K UHDs. It's like, well, we still have the license. Let's just upgrade it. Put it on HDR and Dolby Vision and all that. You know, maybe a Dolby Atmos mix. They don't usually do a Dolby Atmos mix. They don't usually do the extra step. It's usually just make it look slightly prettier, you know. And they're doing that now as well. I want to say Arrow is the main culprit here, because looking at it, it's like... I mean, Criterion's doing it too. They've done it with Picnic at Hanging Rock. Arrow's done it with... Carrie, you know, there's a lot of releases that they have a 4K scan of, which do usually look really nice. I mean, Criterion, at least the 4K, is understandable for an upgrade, given that they previously only had a high-definition transfer on Blu-ray. But, of course, it's the same print from Second Sight, so if you've seen that one and you don't like that print, you won't like the Criterion version. Not to mention, American discs are usually weaker in terms of bitrate, so the UK editions will look better anyway. Even though it's a slight bit, but it is, for the keen eye, the trained eye, it looks noticeably different. I'm not that trained, but still. So yeah, like, I'm watching a bunch of Giallos right now, and all those are like 2K remasters, and they look fantastic. And I've been comparing them to some of the 4K UHDs I've gotten of the Giallos that I have been watching, say like Blood and Black Lace, Deep Red, and... Bird of the Crystal Plumage, stuff like the Argentos that I purposely upgraded because I only had the standard Blu-rays, which are still 4K remasters, but I'm like, hey, I'll get the 4K UHDs because at least then I'm getting the limited editions with the different artwork, with the booklets and stuff. Like, for me, I was benefiting from that because I didn't have them in the previous release, I only had the standard edition. And looking at the 2K scans versus the 4K scan, there's still a noticeable difference, but I'm like, I can see why a bunch of them, because a lot of them, the Giallos, are from like the Giallo Essentials set, like Torso, or the Death Walks on High Heels, Death Walks at Midnight, like a lot of ones that you've probably never heard of that all have gotten these 2K restorations, and honestly, they look great. they don't need a 4K UHD. I don't think people would buy a 4K UHD of these. At least with the Argento films, it makes sense because he's a popular name in the genre, so people will buy them, you know? But then someone like Sergio Martino, who's a lot less known but still a really good director for the Giallos, his have been reduced to, oh, here's a Sergio Martino collection. It doesn't include Torso, his best film, but that's okay. It's got these other ones. It doesn't matter. We're just repackaging. It's fine. So stupid. But yeah, it really gets to that point of, yeah, people are going to complain when films aren't getting 4K UHD treatments, but companies are having to figure out if it's worthwhile making the 4K UHD. Because if they're doing bulk films a lot of the time, 4 or 5 releases every month, they have to figure out what's going to be best cost efficient wise and what's going to work. And now, I'm not exactly wanting to, like, side with the company. The company's the way you go. It's all about the company. No, who fucking cares? Like, it's all about, in the end, the consumer. If the consumer isn't buying the product, the company ain't going to sell the product. It's kind of as simple as that. We're in a weird kind of, I don't know what the phrase is, but we're in a weird period right now where, I mean, pandemic aside, we've got UHD discs now. It's new, it's fresh, it's something different, but it's not cheap. It's expensive. It's expensive to buy, it's expensive to produce. A lot of companies, especially Criterion and Arrow, are going for the option of, look, we've got these 4K scans, we can add a bit of uptick to it with a Dolby Vision, UHD, nicer, it'll look great kind of deal on a larger disc, but we're not adding anything to it, so we don't have to put in the extra money. Maybe in the packaging department, sure, like I got Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and that was definitely a bit more bang for your buck in terms of packaging, but the scan is still the same 4K scan as before. It's just a bit uptick because it's, you know, got Dolby Vision and whatever. And it's interesting to look at it like they're like, this is the cheapest way we can go about making at least one release every couple of months is a 4K UHD of something we've already done, which some of the fans would be like, yes, this is great, but at least we're not putting too much money into it, because it's like, instead of getting a whole new film, a whole new print. But then, of course, begs the question, why not just do a whole new film and a whole new print? You know, do something that hasn't been released yet. But that's more expensive, because they got to find the film, they got to pay for the print, and there's too much to do about it, you know? There is a lot of weird back and forth. But yeah, it's a weird kind of, grey area, where people want the 4K UHDs, but there's like, it's like a loud minority, because a lot of people still don't have 4K. You know, I've got friends who literally gave me a replacement disc set from a 88 film set. It was like a Italian horror film that was a 4K UHD, and it was a Blu-ray 4K set. They got replacement discs because apparently the color grading wasn't completely accurate, and so they gave me the replacement discs, mostly because they happened to be at their place at the time, but they haven't seen the 4K UHD because they don't have a 4K. They don't have a 4K player or a 4K TV. So it's like, you know, they can't afford it right now. They can afford the releases, so they're like, yeah, we'll happily buy the release, we can still play it and watch it and whatever. And they're not getting the best experience out of the film possible from both a visual and an audio standpoint. I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to be like, yo, this is shit, we're not going to watch it on your shitty TV, come to my... Like, I'm not going to be that person, but it's also like, because I'm just not that person, but they're like the regular consumer. They're the person. They're the people who want these films. They want the boutique releases. They want these films that are so obscure but beautifully remastered. Especially the ones that are from 88 films and whatnot. Especially the crazy, unheard of, you know, cult horror films and stuff like that. That's their alleyway. That's what they love. And then to just not be able to fully experience it, it doesn't matter. We'll still get the 4K Blu-ray set because we can still watch the Blu-ray, so we can still watch the film. It's one of those things where you just got to think about other people besides yourself. You could see a release of a film and be like, yes, I want Basket Case in 4K UHD. I really want to see that guy's penis. You know? Or you could be like, man, 4K UHD for Basket Case? That seems a bit excessive. It doesn't come with anything new. You don't get the sequels. It's like, what the hell's the point? Like, I only knew about the Steelbook release, or even this just the old second sight release because people were complaining, saying like, I've got the second sight release. It has all 3 films. The first one looks great. I don't need to spend $60 on a 4K of one film when I already have spent less than that on 3 films. You know, so it's a tricky prompt almost. Like, do I want this? Do I not want this? People will yell and complain. I want this on 4K. Give me the 4K. Why is it just a 4K restoration but not a UHD disc? So, yeah, and then give it a couple months. But I think that's also the other thing. You give it a couple months and then maybe those things will still come to 4K anyway. But that's usually regular films. Like Warner Brothers releases and Sony releases and stuff like that. That are just common releases that will get a Blu-ray release. And people will be like, oh, this should get a 4K release. It deserves it. And then 6 months later it gets a 4K release. It's a different kind of avenue because that's common releases for the common folk or the common movies. But like the boutique release is a different avenue because for very different reasons and have different expenses added to it from booklets and video essays and commentary tracks and shit. So, yeah, there is no solution to it. I can't say it's an ever-evolving problem, but it's a more prominent problem that I'm noticing. I'm very much wanting to keep my eyes on the whole, oh, we've announced this, but because there hasn't been enough pre-orders for it, we're cancelling it and just doing a standard release. That's an interesting one, because a brand like that, I don't remember which brand it was who had announced it, but they had like 2 different 4K releases that were noirs that I'd never heard of, but, I mean, I'm not hugely fluent in the noir genre anyway, but like, they were like films with it was like a big name actor or someone like you'd recognize the actor and be like, oh, I know that guy's name, I know his face, that kind of stuff, I know the kind of films. It's like getting a bunch of Bogarts and getting like his less famous ones and being like, hey, do you want this Bogart film on 4K UHD? Here you go. It's like, no, not really, I'm good. Like, sure, the 4K UHD will look great, but it's like, a standard 4K remaster on a Blu-ray disc will probably suffice anyway. Like, they're usually only 60 to 70 minute long films. I'm not really complaining. And the black and white, you know, do I need the extra uptick in black and white details? Not really. It wouldn't hurt, sure, you know, Touch of Evil on 4K UHD, sure, I'll take that over the standard 4K release that you did like a couple of years back. Oh, whatever, sure, I'll eat it up. But yeah. That's the concerning one, seeing stuff like that. But it's like, I feel like that's part of the process. Like maybe the person who's like programming it and is like, oh yeah, this one, I love this one. This one will look great on a 4K UHD. Let's do that. And then realizing that, oh, everyone else kind of doesn't know what this is, and they don't really care enough to buy it. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just that kind of ballpark of, oh, well, it's in the genre of this, it's got that actor, people have bought similar films with similar stars and similar genres kind of deal. Like 88 Films does that with their, like, zombie horror films or, like, their Italian collection. Like, they know what their audience wants because they are very specific with what they want. And, of course, the more detail in the picture usually is like, fuck yeah, let's look at this really gnarly shit in the best quality format possible. But a lot of people might look at noirs and be like, I don't really need a noir in a 4K UHD. Like, sure, I might, whatever, but I don't really need it, you know? So, it's a very up there thing. I know this has kind of been a really weirdly rambly video, but I don't know, it's not a picturesque situation. People, again, consumers like you and me are going to complain. I want this on 4K UHD. Why are we not getting the 4K UHD? Boutique label who has the capacity to do such a thing? Don't you dare release it now on 4K and then like a Blu-ray with a 4K remaster and then in a year's time be like, here's the 4K UHD. Was Bazinga? I don't fucking know what they're going to say to us. Nothing. They're just going to give us the new version. We'll be like, fuck you. You know, I don't know who's buying Carrie on a 4K. Sure, it might look great, but if you didn't already buy the Scream Factory edition, then you have the original Arrow Video version. And it's like, the Arrow Video version was great. Maybe you've got the original Scream Factory edition. I don't fucking know. I was tempted to buy it, but I didn't buy it in the end. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a tricky thing, but again, look, You're the consumer in the end. It's up to you. It's your voice, and your voice is your money. If you want it, you buy it. If you don't want it, you don't buy it. Maybe you wait and then it comes out and then it gets good reviews and you wait for a sale, or you just buy it when it gets good reviews. I like to buy 4K UHDs when they come out with good reviews. I don't usually like to pre-order them unless I know that they're selling out fast, like Arrow's Conan set. Like the Conan Chronicles version I bought because I knew it was going to sell out. So I bought it, and I wanted Conan on 4K, and I wanted to see the sequel. I hadn't seen it before. So there are definitely releases that I want to instantly pre-order, but there are other ones where I'm like, I can wait on that. Like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, sure, I'll get the 4K, but Carrie, I'm happy with what I have, you know? So there are obvious occasions where it's a different thing, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The 4K from Second Sight was divine, but it also came with amazing packaging and amazing booklet and stuff like that. I already had the 4K scan. I didn't need it. I didn't need the new 4K UHD, but it was worth it in the end, so... Anyway, that's my thoughts on that, but again, it's up to you. You want to buy it, you buy it. You don't want to buy it, you don't buy it. Do we have to be concerned about things not getting a 4K UHD release because people aren't pre-ordering enough? That's up to the company. If the company who are making it, who are producing it, have that problem, that's kind of on them. If people would prefer just a standard Blu-ray with a 4K transfer, then maybe that's all they really want. Anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts down below, and I'll see you guys next time where I don't talk about movies. Oh, when will that be? I don't know. Bye.